You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber, and this is your AMAC podcast, Better for America. Folks, this looks different, right? I'm recording from my hotel room in Southern Florida, and we don't have the technology that we normally have, so hopefully this video comes out clear and audible. You can hear my voice. But folks, the reason why I wanted to come to you today is because I had a number of folks that I work with over at AMAC, right? So they called me up. I'm here in Southern Florida on a business trip. They call me up and they say, Rebecca, our Chief Technology Officer, David Kane, just conducted an interview with another AMAC Associate, Ori Preiss, who runs our sort of information technology and digital back end stuff that's way above my head. I don't quite understand it all, but we've got these techie guys that are having a conversation. Now, Ori has family over in Israel. Ori is an AMAC associate. He was born and raised in Israel. He's got family there, and he was there on vacation. And David Kane, who's quite friendly with Ori, they work hand in glove, said, let me give Ori a call and check in and see how things are going on the street. You know, what are the civilians feeling and thinking? How are things overseas? What does it look like in Israel after the sort of, I guess, the truce agreement that is in place over there? And I found it very interesting. When I listened in, I thought, this is really cool stuff that people like me and you should know about. We should be hearing about. So you're going to hear a great interview with David Kane, who asks some very good, important questions to AMAC Associate Ori Preiss while he's over in Israel. And so stay tuned and listen to that. Folks, I want to mention to you as well that one of the things that I'm here for in Southern Florida is I'm working with AMAC leadership to really identify the key issues that we think we can be most successful at really tackling. And I always go back to you, our AMAC member, and those people that have joined AMAC for $16 a year. You become a member of AMAC. You are automatically subscribed to the AMAC magazine, which is filled with great information. We are the fastest growing conservative publication in America, so I'm so proud of that. And you can download the news app, by the way, on your iPhone. If you just look on your iPhone, you go to the App Store and you look for AMAC, you'll find our AMAC news app, and you can get information on the go. We don't ask you for information. We don't take your email address. We don't bombard you with ads. Great way to get the good news and information that you're just not going to get in mainstream media. But we are really looking to find out from you folks, what are the issues that are most important to you that we work on? So if we have a team of people that are in Washington that are representing over 2.3 million AMAC members, and we're growing, that number is growing, what are the issues that you want us to focus on? Well, I'll tell you what we've been focusing on. Election integrity. We've been doing that at the state level through AMAC Action delegates and chapter leaders. Go to amacaction.org to learn more about what we do on a grassroots level, especially at the state level. We've had so much headway on election integrity and election reform at the state level. Another issue, folks, that is important to me personally is sanctity of life at all levels, from conception to natural death. We don't want a panel of doctors coming in to tell you or me that we're too old for an operation. And we want doctors to save the lives of babies that are born through botched abortions. I mean, isn't this kind of common sense? We're not barbarians. We're compassionate people. I would like to think that most Americans are compassionate people, and we need to stop abortion. That's something important to me. Your Second Amendment right, your right to keep and bear arms. I'll tell you, folks, one of the reasons why I get excited to come to work each and every day is to make sure that our rights, our liberties are protected. Each and every American has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's written in our Declaration of Independence. And so life is right there. We all have the right to life. So we ought to protect the most vulnerable, those in the womb. We've got to strengthen Social Security. We've got to work to make sure that the federal government stays out of the patient-doctor relationship. We don't need the federal government in the exam room. So we're working hard to protect your health care, to protect your Social Security. We've got an eye on the national debt. It's growing. It's out of control. We want to work to make sure that future generations that America can survive with this massive debt, let alone future Americans, right? We want to make sure that you and I are here to the very country that we love is not torn apart because of this incredible debt that we're putting on not just future generations, but right here on each and every American person that's carrying this debt. So that's so important as well. So what we want to do, what I would like to do, and I said this to my team earlier, I want to come out with a poll. I want to send it to each and every AMAC member that has given us your email address. We want to ask you, tell us the issues that you want us to focus on first and foremost, and we'll give you at least a dozen because there are so many things that we are working on. But where do you really want us to put our efforts and our energy? And we will do that. We take our marching orders from you, our AMAC membership. If you haven't joined or renewed your AMAC membership, I really want to encourage you to do so. Go to amac.us, that's amac.us. And folks, I might look like I have some green in my hair. And if I do, it's because I was in the pool with my grandbaby over the weekend. And I came out, my hair was green. It was green as could be. So what I did was I got a bunch of lemons and I squeezed them throughout my hair and it worked. But if any of you have any better ideas to get this sort of green tint out of my hair, please let me know. Comment below. I'm happy to take your advice. I don't want to go back to the hairstylist. That's too long, too boring, too costly. So any home remedies, please share them. I do like myself better blonde, but you can see I'm definitely getting darker as I get older. And folks, another issue and question that I have for you is, do you know about critical race theory? Does it bother you that critical race theory is being brought to our school systems? It bothers me. I have a grandbaby. I just said I spent the day with her in the pool over the weekend. She's 3. Her name is Sadie Ann. She's the apple of my eye, and I cannot imagine that she would sit through a kindergarten class and be made to feel like an oppressor because she is white. Critical race theory is so dangerous to our nation. So folks, that's another issue that I want to push to the top of the agenda because I feel that is sort of going after the jugular of America's heartbeat, right? If you get into the school system, if you're able to get your way into the youth of America behind parents' backs and grandparents' backs and teach our children, indoctrinate our children, brainwash our children, and I call it child abuse, really, to train children to notice first the color of their skin. That to me is racist. That is the most racist thing you can do. In my humble opinion. So I'm curious to hear what you AMAC members think, and anyone watching or listening, please like and share this video. Thank you again so much. Without our 2 million AMAC members, well over 2 million American patriots, we would not be able to do what we do today. We just wouldn't. So it's because of you, each and every member, that makes our organization effective. And we have been effective. We've done so much on election integrity at the state level. We're working on that. We know that that's a very important issue for you folks. Immigration reform, very important. Getting critical race theory out of schools, so important. Protecting life from conception to natural death, that is so important. Ensuring that you have affordable health care and that you can get at the medications that you need, that is so important. Protecting your Social Security, it's your money. You've been putting money away and giving it to the government so that when you reach that entitlement age, you can collect on your Social Security benefit. We want to make sure that it's there for generations to come. Folks, there are so many issues that are important to AMAC, so be sure to check out AMAC's poll on our website at amac.us. And hope you all enjoy this great interview. Thanks to Dave Kane for conducting the interview on my behalf, and Ori Preiss, AMAC's very own AMAC Associate.
Ori, thank you so much for taking the time out of your family vacation to do this interview and let the people of AMAC know how things are going in Israel since the conflict that recently just was brokered truce, and kind of want to get like what the vibe is there and what people are thinking and doing and things like that, because normally, as you know, we don't get the real deal from the news these days, so we wanted to interview you. So again, I appreciate you being here. What is the atmosphere like in Jerusalem, in Israel, since the truce was brokered? I mean,
So in Israel, Israeli people have very short attention spans. It's always like about the here and now, and not about what happened last week, 2 weeks ago, a year ago. So right now, most Israelis, the war didn't really affect them. Only the people that lived really close to Gaza. So, I mean, it's just business as normal right now. Everyone's attention on the coalition that might start up next week, and with the ouster of Netanyahu.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's a lot of big news. Well, that's almost a good thing that they have a short attention span, because grudges can be, can go on for thousands of years, as we know, especially in that
Definitely.
region. So that's almost a good thing that they have that short attention span when it comes to that. So what you're saying is, what are the feelings like between Muslims and Israelis inside? Well, let me ask you this: what is it normally like before something like this happens, and then what is it like now? Is there any difference? From what I'm hearing is you're saying it's like back to normal. And what is normal as far as Israeli and Muslim relations inside of Israel? Because I know there's a very large Muslim population that lives inside of Israel, as well as the Jewish population.
Yeah, it's very complicated, actually. There are many, many different types of groups of Arabs. I can tell you there's one group of Arabs, they live in a place called Abu Ghosh, and that's like a few kilometers from me, and they're very pro-Israel. And Israelis go to all their restaurants and use all their services, and it's a very nice piece.
That's
and
amazing.
On the other hand, you have Palestinians like living in places where Israelis can't go in the West Bank, and there, Israelis don't go there.
Right. Understood. Well, I mean, that's a good thing. That's good to hear, because I think what a lot of people in the US don't realize is just that there is, they think that it's just Muslims against Jews in Israel, and they're constantly at each other's throat. And if you take the time to go into it, you realize that's not true. And obviously, that's not true, because you've lived there, and you go back there, and you have relatives that still live there. So that's good that you put that out there, because I think there's a common misconception that if you're a Muslim, you don't like Jews, and if you're a Jew, you don't like a Muslim. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, but that being said, there was a problem in one of the mixed cities, a place called Lod, where it has a sizable Muslim population. And the problem in this round of warfare was that there was Israeli Arabs that were rioting in Israeli cities.
That sounds familiar over here.
That got the tensions really high.
Yeah, I could see that. It's almost like what happened here in the United States when our citizens started rioting for the BLM movements and things like that. It really just ratcheted up the tension in the nation. So I completely get that. And, a lot of people in the US think that Israel is just like this big bully with a bunch of American weapons that fire into the Gaza with, reckless abandon, I know that Hamas fires rockets indiscriminately into Israel aimed at large cities to cause mass casualties. You and I have had numerous conversations on this at work. I forgot to mention Ori works at AMAC, and he works for my department, and he's a valued member of my team. So that's where that comes from. So you and I had several conversations about this, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is the extent that Israel goes to actually avoid casualties. I was shocked when I found this out. I've known this for quite some time, but when I did find out, I was like, who does that in warfare? It's almost like you're calling up to say, hey, we're coming. So I know of the term roof knocking. We were talking about that. Could you explain some of the lengths that the Israeli government goes through to avoid killing non-combatants in Gaza when things like this happen?
Yeah, for sure. You have to point out that Gaza, I think, is the most crowded place in the world, and that's just the start. So, I mean, if you launch a bomb there or launch a missile to anywhere in Gaza, if you're not very precise, you're going to have mass casualties.
A lot of collateral damage, yeah.
A lot, and like in the thousands. It could get up to even the tens of thousands if you're not careful. And Israel does not want that publicity. They value life.
Yeah, publicity, and they're really not interested in killing unarmed non-combatants.
It's very true. They're also not very interested in. I mean, killing combatants isn't their main goal. Their main goal is to destroy infrastructure. That being said, you have they would notice with all their high technology that they're launching missiles from a high-rise tower. So instead of going and bombing it right away, they actually call every single apartment.
I know, it's
every single person that lives there, all the cell phones, and make sure that everybody knows to go. One sec.
That's okay. We know you're on vacation, Ori, so it's okay. No different than our Zoom calls during the pandemic, right? Yeah, don't worry about it,
Sorry
Ori.
about that.
No different than our Zoom calls during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So go ahead.
So I was saying they would call every single person, every single apartment, and make sure to tell them in Arabic to leave, that they have like an hour to get out of there or 2 hours. And then what they do is they launch a missile without a warhead to the roof of the building. It makes a big noise, but it doesn't do any damage.
Thus the term roof knock.
Yes, and then people know to get out of Dodge.
And then, do you know, I mean, what's the amount of time between the roof knock and when the actual missile hits the building? Are we talking 5 minutes, half hour, or?
I think anywhere between half an hour to like hour and a half or 2 hours.
Yeah, I would expect that as well. I mean, everything that I've read and seen, that they really, like you said, it's a very highly populated, and it's not that they only don't want the publicity, it's that they don't want to kill civilians. They realize that, I remember when this first went out, your first words to me were, I feel so bad for the Gazan people. And I've actually also heard that one of the tactics of Hamas is that they will store weapons and fire weapons from areas where there are high populations of civilians. So if Israelis retaliate, they get max value on the PR. I mean, that seems like they're almost using their own people as, PR fodder. And
they would launch from, playgrounds, from roofs of hospitals, and it's just like horrible tactics. I mean,
it's unbelievable that here in the U.S. that this is. I mean, can you imagine any other conflict or any other country? I haven't heard of it, like the U.S. in Afghanistan. Calling on the cell phones of Taliban members in a town and saying, hey, we're going to bomb your village. It doesn't happen. And so I wanted to get that out there so people, a lot of our members know that, a lot of our members, most of our members support Israel. They're staunch American patriots. They support Israel because they know of our close relationship and that America was founded on, Judeo-Christian values. So there's this level of closeness between the nations. So a lot of our members know that, but we're hoping to get the word out and with specifics, because a lot of them may know that Israel is not hell-bent on killing everyone. They may not know about roof knocks and calling people. And when they're in conversations with people that, because there's been a lot of, as you know, Ori, unfortunately, there's been a lot of anti-Semitic rhetoric. There's been attacks in New York City against Jews. And, it's all for misinformation. And we even have standing members of Congress fueling that anti-Semitism. And it's just got to stop, because it's fed on false knowledge and things like that. Since we're on the topic of firing missiles, I know that some of your family members during this recent barrage of missiles that went into Israel a couple weeks ago landed within a kilometer of their homes, and you yourself were also subject to missile attacks when you used to live in Israel. Fortunately for America, I think what people don't realize in America is we don't have that problem here. We're not taking missiles. I think you even said this when we were talking, how would America react if Mexico started firing rockets into San Diego? I don't think that would go too well for Mexico. So
no, I think Tijuana would get wiped off the map very quickly.
So what I wanted to ask is, since we don't have to deal with dangers like that, could you just kind of, what's it like to live in a country where there's, this threat of it? I know that I would assume that people don't walk around every day thinking, oh, our missile's coming, but this is a reminder that it can happen, and it's always there. I mean, are children taught in school to be prepared for situations like this? I mean, they must be terrified when things like this happen, and they have to,
That's very true, but it's just part of the education. Like in Israel, in America, they have the active shooter.
Unfortunately,
in Israel, it's unheard of.
Yeah,
it's you just trade one for the other. Sorry to say, but that's the reality. So in the latest round of fighting, when they launched the first missiles towards Jerusalem, of course, they didn't reach Jerusalem because they don't have the capability to be so precise. It landed actually in the next hill over.
Wow, that's scary stuff.
Yeah, it's like a kilometer away.
Wow. Well, I remember when I'm old enough to have done the nuclear drills in elementary school and getting under the desks. Now that I'm adult, now that I'm adult and realize that getting under a desk for a nuclear weapon is like, bringing an oar to paddle across the Atlantic Ocean. So it's not going to work out too well. But I do remember as a kid, certain points I would think about it, and it used to kind of scare me. It was on my mind and gave me what now I guess would be called a level of anxiety. Not every day, but the day we would have those drills, it would make me think, my God, what happens if a nuclear bomb comes? So, it's a shame that any of us have to prepare for stuff like this. It would be much nicer world if the only thing we had to prepare for were natural disasters. So, Ori, I want to move on before I let you go. I don't want to interrupt too much of your vacation. I know it's wrapping up in a few days, but many have said that a two-state solution, we've been after this, not we, everyone, including, Israel, have been looking for a two-state solution. And they're saying that, the United States and all these other countries are saying that's the benchmark for everlasting peace in the region. And there have been numerous attempts to make this happen, but it seems it can never come to fruition. Why do you think that is? I mean, I'm sure most of the residents of Gaza are looking to see this happen, as well as Israel, and move on with peaceful and productive lives. It seems to me that Hamas does not seem to be interested in negotiating this two-state solution. As an Israeli with many relatives still living in Israel, what's the general feeling about this? I mean, do the Israelis support this two-state solution? I mean, the majority. Obviously, you don't speak for everyone, but you and your relatives, and you've got a much better feel for, is the two-state solution the way to go? Because, I've heard a lot of rhetoric through the years where I think it was in 2003 when Yasser Arafat was leading the PLO, he rejected the two-state solution. And, a lot of them fueling, you get the rhetoric from Iran, we'll never recognize Israel. I think that kind of hinders this two-state solution. But what are your feelings on that? And what's the general feeling of a lot of Israelis on that two-state solution.
It's very unfortunate that the Palestinians have basically not not so great leadership. There's a saying that they say the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. And it's very true because they had many occasions. I mean, even 10 years ago, there was a big, with Ehud Olmert, if you remember,
Yes, yeah.
there was it came out later that they were going to get like almost everything they wanted and they still didn't make a deal. And now the facts on the ground make it very difficult for a two-state solution to work because now you have all these settlements, legal or illegal, but I mean, facts on the ground say like a lot of people are living there. You'd have to move them. It's just
It
makes
becomes a
big,
logistical nightmare, and it really becomes because
especially
now
with Gaza on one side and then the West Bank on the other side, and they're two different governments. I mean, there's just too many roadblocks to it.
that's unfortunate. So is there any other thing that people that you hear in Israel like is a better solution? Not that I'm asking you for the solution for peace in the Middle East, but is there anything on the table other than the two-state solution? Because I really haven't heard anything else.
There really is
Yeah.
not. Netanyahu did a good job of keeping the status quo, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, but that's the facts on the ground.
Right. The fact
Um,
of the matter is it was stalled because of that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just been stalled for too many years, and there needs to be a very creative solution to be able to solve this problem right now.
Wow.
It's not
Well,
like 30 years ago.
yeah, and it unfortunately it seems like it's just this never-ending thing. And like I said, I know there were so many times that we were close to it, and then it was, due to the leaders. And again, who suffers for it? It's not the leaders, it's not the organizations in power, it's the residents. And that's unfortunate because it's a humanitarian crisis at times there. You know what I mean? And again, most Israelis, they don't want that for those people. Last question, Ori, then I'll let you wrap up. I know it's getting late there. You're probably getting ready for some dinner. Donald Trump was a huge supporter of Israel, as you know, and he was the only president to move the embassy, unlike his predecessors who claimed they would do so as well on the campaign trail. That was part of his promises made, promises kept. What what do you think most Israelis are, what's the sentiment about the Biden administration and how it will affect US Israeli relations? I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about the people because, my personal view is that, the Biden administration is definitely not as pro-Israel as the Trump administration.
So if you talk to the average person, I'm not talking about the extremes. I'm talking about the median
Correct. That's what
average
I'm looking
Joe.
for. Yeah.
They were pleasantly surprised in the last round of war that they got a lot of backing from Biden.
I was
mean,
as well. I was as well.
He didn't force them to stop. He didn't put in ultimatums that were publicly made, at least, and he even kept his own party a little quiet. Like there were all those people, all the people in Congress that were very anti-Israel. He kept them quiet, or he didn't listen to them as much, and he let the Israelis do what they had to do.
I was actually pleasantly surprised as well because leading up to that, it really didn't seem he almost was dismissing Israel. It took him a long time to contact the leader once after he was inaugurated and stuff like that. So I was a little worried about that. So I actually happen to agree with you on that. I was pleasantly surprised. Let's hope that keeps up. I do have one more question. I apologize. I did say that last one was, but this kind of rolled into it while we were talking. Trump, although still has his diehard supporters, myself included, that 80 million people. I'm curious to, he's taken a fall from grace in our media for sure, and big tech and social media, which expands all reaches of the world. I mean, I watch I-24, Israeli news from my living room. So, is there an anti-Trump sentiment in Israel, or are they still happy about the things he did, and are they still a lot of pro-Trump people out there?
Depends. If you like Netanyahu, then you probably like Trump.
Gotcha.
And if
So
you don't like Netanyahu, then you probably don't like Trump. It's just very similar to the U.S.
very similar things. All right. Well, that makes sense. Ori,
But
thank you
there's
so.
nobody on the fence.
What's nobody on the
Right,
fence?
right,
Yeah, I think moderation has gone out the window for the world, let alone U.S. and Israeli. So everyone's getting in their camp and settling in, and
definitely.
so Ori, I really appreciate you again
I
taking.
wanted to actually tell
Yeah,
you a story.
sure. Go ahead.
This this was in 2014, in the round before, the fighting before. This is when I was in Israel. I was in a city where I grew up in Holon, which is like a suburb of Tel Aviv, like Queens in New York.
Right, right.
Um, and it was like 10 p.m. and I had like my kids were like tiny babies at the time. My oldest was like 5, my youngest was like 1.
Wow.
And all of a sudden the air raid sirens went off.
Oh no.
And this was like the first launch. I had to pick up a kid in each arm.
I mean, I'm laughing. It's not
safety-
funny though.
My safety room was downstairs, my reinforced concrete
Your bunker,
room.
yeah.
My bunker. Every house that's built after like 1999 or something has to have one.
Code.
It's in the building code.
Wow, that's
And,
crazy that
yeah.
that's in building code. That just right there is sad. But go ahead.
And my wife had 2 other kids under her arms, and we ran in the reinforced room. I closed the door, closed the window. We have like, I think it's a minute and a half from when we hear the siren to when we hear the bomb
Wow.
exploding. And actually, I heard a big blast. It was in Rishon LeZion. It's a city a little bit south of Holon, and it completely, like I saw on the news, it completely decimated a whole like apartment building.
Oh wow, that's
It
scary.
didn't kill anybody because everyone was in their safety
Their bunkers.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
but that was tough.
and again, that's what I said. It's like it's scary stuff, and we've got to figure out a solution. But unfortunately, it looks like you said a long time down the road. Ori, have a great trip. Come back safe, and I need you back at the helm. And have a great day. I really appreciate you doing this for us, and take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Better for America podcast. To learn more about AMAC and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.